So I'd actually had an email a week or so ago from Patricia asking me to address this um, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional quote that gets thrown around a lot. And it's actually one of my favorite teachings as it provides just really lots of insight into it's one of the Buddha's more brilliant of his many, many brilliant insights. And I want to, before we get, well, as we get started, I want to uh, share with you again the sutta in which the Buddha talks about the second arrow, because that's essential to this question. And he says, when touched with a feeling of pain, the ordinary uninstructed person sorrows, grieves, and laments, beats his breast, becomes distraught, so he feels two pains, physical and mental, just as if they were to shoot a man with an arrow and then right afterward were to shoot him with another one so that he would feel the pain of two arrows. Okay. So, in this teaching of the two arrows, of the difference between pain and suffering, really, is true whether we're talking about physical pain or emotional pain, really any pain, it's applicable. It's generally thought, this is a gross oversimplification, but it's generally thought that either both physical and psychological pain activate the same regions of the brain. So the brain's not distinguishing between whether we're in physical pain or emotional pain. What neuroscientists call the pain matrix, I had to look this up, which consists of three areas of the brain: the anterior cingulate cortex, the thalamus, and the insula. Now, it's probably more complicated than that, but that's plenty complicated for our purposes. But what we do know is that there are three components to pain, whatever the pain: the physical, the sense-based, the actual sensory experience, and the emotional. And we also know that when we're in emotional pain, there is a physical component. It hurts. That's why we talk about the heart breaking, or I'm just suffering with this emotional pain, which has physical correlates. So, what then is exactly meant by this notion of suffering being optional? The emotional component is the meaning which we attribute to the pain. It's the source of it is the second arrow. I shouldn't say it's the source of the second arrow. It is the second arrow. So what is meant by this sort of complicated or conundrum where he says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional? What he's talking about there is that we can, by suffering is optional, is that we can change our relationship to pain. This is what he offers in the practice, whether it's psychological or physical pain, by opening to it and bringing attention to it on an emotional level. And we're going to get into that a little bit. What we do know is that the effort to avoid the pain, which is really our default as creatures, for all creatures, is what makes it worse. Okay, there's where the second arrow kicks in, because we're trying to avoid it. We make up stories about the pain. For example, we tell ourselves, if we're having a physical pain like lower back, oh, this is physically damning or dangerous. This could, that kind of narrative will make the pain worse. Okay. But if we distinguish between the pain and the suffering, then we open the door for some positive change. Um, some of you are familiar with the work of Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's the developer of mindfulness-based stress reduction. Um, it's kind of a secularized meditation practice, which he developed at the medical school up at UMass, and has had tremendous success over the years in teaching this, spreading this, and working with chronic pain patients. Okay, the primary practice is what's called a body scan and sitting meditation. But the practice is to get out of our heads and develop an intimacy with the body. That's a quote from him. And the body scan involves systematically moving through the body while in a relaxed posture and feeling the breath moving out of the body region we're attending to. So if I have pain in my shoulder, I sort of breathe through that. I know that sounds a little strange, but that's the message that's giving. And it's cultivating concentration and mindfulness simultaneously, sort of creating this continual flow. We're not just stuck on the object of attention, the pain. This and keep in mind that the body scan is not a relaxation exercise. A lot of us have practiced uh, uh, intentional relaxation. That's not the body scan. Relaxation exercises have a goal in mind to relax the body. The meditation, the body scan, is about non-striving. And the point of that is to create spaciousness around our experience, especially our pain. And again, it matters not whether it's emotional pain where I'm really hurting and upset from some interaction I've had, or whether my shoulder is throbbing. It takes us out of being laser focused on what hurts. Now, we know that our default is to go there, is to put our attention there, but that's where it gets tricky. If the interpretation is that the pain, when I focus on it, is killing me, ruining my life, all the emotions and stories that go with that, that's the second error. Okay. And in that seeing and in recognizing that, we can begin to create some distance create spaciousness and some distance from that laser focus on the pain. So here we are again using noticing and acceptance. If we pay attention, just on a daily basis or however often to these little episodes of pain, we learn how to work with the bigger episodes when they come along. Okay. It's about fully understanding the impermanence of pain, the fact that whatever the pain, it tends to come in waves. It doesn't last forever. It's not unrelenting. We learn to see it as an impermanent sort of process of waves, and we begin to understand the source of the suffering, both the original source and then the second arrow source. Okay. And in doing so, it creates the potential to make choices that will move us toward greater wisdom and compassion, including self-compassion, which is part of how we gain freedom from suffering, freedom from that second era. Okay. Now, I don't have to tell you that we don't like pain. Who likes it? It hurts. It's not fun. It's unpleasant. But we also understand that for us and really all living creatures, I mean, even an amoeba in a petri dish, if you put heat in there, it moves away. Evolved to experience it as necessary for our survival. It's a signaling mechanism. It evolved to signal us to imminent danger, to take our hand out of the fire. You hear about people that have these sensory problems where they don't really experience it and they can just rest their hand on the stove until it just cooks their hand because they're not experiencing pain. That's strange kind of anomaly. So we need to have it, to survive. But we suffer because we link our instinctive aversion to it, our default aversion to it, to this deep-seated belief that our life should be free from it. I mean, if you dig down, most of us think, I shouldn't have pain. Why should I have pain? It hurts. But in resisting our pain by holding on to this belief, we simply strengthen the very thing we're trying to avoid. When we make pain the enemy, we solidify it. When we make pain the enemy, we solidify it. This resistance is where the second arrow kicks in. It's where the suffering, the optional part, begins. Okay. That's the second arrow that the Buddha taught. So negative judgments like, poor me, why is this happening to me? I can't bear this. This is ruining my life. This is getting in the way of what I need to do. All of that stuff is the second arrow stuff. It's the stories that we tell us about the pain. The pain is the pain. The suffering is all of that added narrative that we bring in. And whether we actively voice these judgments, we probably believe them. I mean, somewhere deep down inside, we believe this shouldn't be happening to me. Okay. And even though we might intellectually rather, accept the Buddha's first noble truth, that life entails suffering. When it happens, we don't want anything to do with it. We want to be rid of it, go away. Yeah, I understand that intellectually what he taught about that first noble truth, but keep it away from me. But we have to understand that both our pain and our suffering are part of life. They're part of our path. They can serve as teachers, as can all experience. Okay. Again, pain, whether emotional or physical, is not the enemy. It is another one of life's unavoidable experiences that we strive to accept. We don't have to like it. I don't suspect we'll ever like it unless we're masochistic, but we have to work to accept it, accept its inevitability. Because with acceptance, as we talk about here all the time, comes the lessening of our suffering. And in this case, it comes because we have deflected the second arrow so it doesn't strike. And the Buddha understood this so beautifully with such amazing insight. When we no longer see our pain as the enemy, we gradually soften into the sensations of resistance. When we contract, when we resist, when we pull in the face of pain, we know this. We know this from multiple studies. It only makes it worse. When we bring awareness to whenever we experience tightness, pushing away, avoidance, holding, we soften those energies with this awareness. We open around the edges of the pain. We see it. I love how Jon Kabat-Zinn, if you know his work, talks about seeing it discreetly in little chunks. Oh, that feels warm. Oh, that feels cold. Oh, that feels tight. Oh, that feels sharp. Oh, that feels dull. I mean, he really does sort of get into the pain and move toward it with that kind of descriptive stuff. We no longer believe the thoughts. We no longer fight the resistance. So it becomes an experience of the pain itself without the added suffering. Now, this is not easy. I'm not suggesting this is just flip a switch, but this is where we set our intention when we encounter it. This is how we understand this cliche that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We see how we hold our suffering, the second arrow, in place with fear-based thoughts that arise in reaction to pain. This is causing tissue damage. This is interfering with my life. I mean, the stories go on and on. And these thoughts are solidified by our resistance to just letting the pain be, just letting it be another experience. So we accept the inevitability of pain in our lives whenever it comes, but we work skillfully with the optional suffering in the way I described to reduce or minimize it. So that's the story, at least as I understand it, of pain versus suffering. So let's get your thoughts on it.